All right, get ready for this because today we're diving headfirst into one of the greatest medical detective stories ever told. It's an incredible tale about a horrifying disease, a totally out there idea, and the grueling hunt for the world's very first magic bullet.
Seriously, just think about this question for a second. It was the ultimate problem at the start of the 20th century. Imagine you've got this tiny, invisible invader making someone sick. How do you go in and destroy just that one thing and leave everything else totally unharmed? It's a huge problem, right? Sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
So, every good story needs a villain. And trust me, this story has a truly terrifying one. For hundreds of years, there was this one disease that just scared people to death. And for a very, very good reason. It was a disease called syphilis. And yeah, this slide's not kidding. Just trust us on this one. You really don't want to Google the pictures. This was an absolutely brutal disease that started popping up around the globe after 1492. What made it so scary was that it was sneaky, it was unpredictable, and it was just devastating. I mean, can you even imagine how terrifying this was? This disease could just hang out in your body, completely silent, for 20 years. And then, when it finally decided to show up, the results were just horrific. We're talking painful sores, terrible damage to people's faces, and a lot of the time, it was a death sentence. People weren't just hoping for a cure, they were desperate for one.
Okay, so you've got this monster of a disease, you know who the bad guy is. Now, how in the world do you fight it? This kicked off the hunt for something that honestly sounds like it came from a fantasy story.
And what they were looking for was this incredible idea they called a magic bullet. The concept was actually pretty simple, but it was totally revolutionary. Think of it like a tiny, microscopic heat-seeking missile, a chemical that could travel through the whole body, find one very specific germ, destroy it, and leave all your healthy cells completely alone. A perfect, targeted hit. And if you're trying to wrap your head around this, a great way to think about it is to compare it to something like chemotherapy. Chemo is an amazing tool against cancer, but it's kind of like a bomb. It takes out the bad cancer cells, but it also causes a lot of collateral damage to healthy cells. That's why the side effects are so rough. A magic bullet, though, that's a sniper rifle. Pure, clean precision. Now, every story needs a hero, right? Well, meet ours, Paul Ehrlich. He was a brilliant scientist, and while most people thought this magic bullet idea was just a daydream, Ehrlich was obsessed. He was absolutely convinced that it was possible to create a chemical that could hunt down and kill a specific disease. But here's the thing about Ehrlich. He wasn't just a dreamer, he was a doer. And he was about to start one of the most grueling, frustrating, and ultimately history-changing quests in all of science. It was a journey that was going to be defined by failure. Again, and again, and again. So Ehrlich sets up his own lab, and once scientists finally figured out the exact germ that caused syphilis, his team got to work. Their mission was simple. Find a chemical that destroys that germ. And get this, they were working with arsenic. Yeah, that arsenic, the poison. The challenge was insane. Find a version of a poison that kills the tiny germ, but doesn't kill the person. And this is where you just have to respect the grind. I mean, can you imagine coming into work every day? Compound 1, nope. Compound 100, still no. They get all the way up past 400, then 500, all the way to compound number 605, and every single one failed. At this point, you'd think, okay, this is impossible. Time to give up. But then, in 1909, right when things looked the most bleak, a new scientist joins the team. His name was Sahachiro Hata, and he'd come all the way from Japan. He had no idea he was walking into a project that was basically on life support. So what job does the new guy get? The exciting, cutting-edge research? Nope. Ehrlich gives him what might be the worst, most boring job in the entire lab. His job was to go through the trash. Basically. He had to retest all 605 of those chemicals that they already knew were failures. I mean, talk about a soul-crushing assignment. It would be like being told to check hundreds of losing lottery tickets just in case. It must have felt completely pointless. But this is where the movie magic happens. Hata, being the meticulous scientist he was, just puts his head down and does the work. And as he's going through this mountain of failures, he finds something. Someone, somewhere along the line, had made a tiny mistake in the earlier tests. Compound number 606, it wasn't a failure at all. It worked. This was it. After all that searching, all that failure, this was the one. Compound 606 was the perfect little sniper. It hunted down the syphilis germ and took it out, without causing a bunch of collateral damage to healthy tissue. It was the magic bullet. So they called it Salvarsan 606. And in 1911, it was used on people for the very first time. And it was nothing short of a miracle. That crazy idea that Paul Ehrlich had been obsessed with, it wasn't crazy anymore. It was real. This was the world's very first magic bullet. But wait, the story doesn't stop there. Because finding a cure for this one horrible disease was huge. But what they really did was so much bigger. They had started a revolution in medicine.
See, Salvarsan 606 was proof of concept. It proved to the entire world that this was possible, and it kicked the door wide open for other scientists. Before long, in 1932, you get a second magic bullet called Prontosil, then another one during World War II that was so effective it literally saved Winston Churchill's life. This was a total game changer.
And Paul Ehrlich, our hero, his legacy is just massive. He didn't just cure one disease. He basically invented the entire field we now call chemotherapy, and he even won a Nobel Prize for it. Think about that. His refusal to give up after 605 failures, that single-minded grit, it completely changed the course of modern medicine, forever.
So it all boils down to this, right? One person with one impossible idea who just would not quit. And because of that, millions of lives were saved and a whole new way of fighting disease was born. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What are the impossible enemies we're hunting today? And what do you think the next magic bullet is going to be?